Good morning, Shabbat Shalom, and welcome. I'm Ross, and I'm live from the Athenaeum in Jackson, Louisiana, home of HOREB Institute for the Historical and Objective Research and Exploration of the Bible. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm pleased to be with you. Today we're going to be talking about, get this title now, Splitting Hairs, H-E-I-R-S. I guess you could say heirs, but hairs is better. It works better with the title. Splitting Hairs, Rebels, Rivals, and Redactors. Rebels, Rivals, and Redactors. We're working through the Pentateuch, ladies and gentlemen. We're going through the annual cycle of readings. We're following the life and laws of Moses, currently in a series within the series that I would call Wilderness Wanderings, wanderings with an O, because we're wondering about some of these texts. We're entertaining some very intellectual exercises, but in all of this intellectualism, let's not forget faith. So we're going to be working for these understandings, but it's really about learning and learning to live by the words of God. We're dealing with today what is called Parsha Korah. We're talking about Korah today, and if you have a Torah tablet, I'm just going to give you the references. Korah, the Torah portion, begins in Numbers chapter 16, verse 1, which begins on page 124 of the Torah tablet, the Numbers Torah tablet, and goes all the way through chapter 18, verse 32, which is on page 146. We're dealing with this Torah portion, Korah, but we're primarily going to be focusing on this rebellion, challenges to leadership that take place in this Torah portion. And by the end of this, let me just say that it begins, very much begins with this challenge to authority, but by the end, all of that is squashed. By the end of this Torah portion, not only is the rebellion put down at that time, it is for once and for all. One thing comes clear, that there can be no priesthood except the sons of Aaron. We're going to see that. Now this, by the way, is not the first time that we encounter a challenge to authority in the Pentateuch. This isn't the first time. In fact, just not too long ago, we dealt with Numbers chapter 12. And if you remember in Numbers chapter 12, this is where Miriam and Aaron challenged the authority of Moses as well. And their question is interesting. It's something like, and I'm paraphrasing, but has God only spoken to Moses? Like, hey, wait a minute, we're important too. And so there's this challenge. Remember, Numbers chapter 12. You can read that on your own if it's a little foggy, the details, but we just went through it, so it probably isn't. But this narrative today, similarly, following on the heels of that challenge, once again, we have a leadership challenge. Now, this time, it is a challenge not just to Moses, but to Moses and to Aaron. So both Moses and Aaron are challenged in this week's Torah portion, and it really comes down to a question. The question is this: who is holy? Who is holy? We're going to read about that. So I want you to open your Torah tablets if you have them. If you don't, go to Numbers chapter 16, verses 1 through 3. If you do have a Torah tablet, look on page 124. I'm going to read verses 1 through 3. Now Korah, the son of Ishar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, with Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliav and On, the son of Pelath, sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the congregation, called to the assembly men of renown. And they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, this is the ASV, ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Jehovah is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the assembly of Jehovah. So here we have a direct challenge, and at the heart of that challenge is a question that if we really back up and we think about it, it's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to think that this question is asked. Who are you? Because we've been told that the entire congregation is holy. All the assembly, all the congregation is holy. Now, remember where we're at. We're in Numbers chapter 16, but as I've shown over the last several weeks, we have to look at it chronologically where we are. It's not been that long since they were told this very thing that is at the heart of Korah and the other rebel. We're going to break this down momentarily, but at the heart of the rebellion's question. And that is, I thought we were all holy, the whole congregation, and you have assumed, notice, ye have assumed too much. That's what they say to Moses and Aaron. Now, I want you to go with me because this is supposed to be the case, that the whole congregation is holy. So look at Exodus chapter 19, verse 3 through 6, and that's on page 112 if you have the tablet. The reason I use the tablet is because you can see the details behind the Hebrew. You can see the annual cycle of reading, the triennial cycle of reading, all of the open and closed spaces, and you can also see the academic approach to these texts. So we're going to look at chapter 19 and verse 3 of Exodus. And Moses went up unto God, and Jehovah called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be mine own possession. In Hebrew, segulah means a special treasure. Ye shall be mine own possession from among all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. So they've heard this at HOREB. In Exodus chapter 19, that brings us into the revelation at HOREB, the giving of the law, Matan Torah. So they've heard this and just heard it. You're to be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Now, I want you to look with me. We've got a few texts to go through because I want to establish this rebellion is based on something they heard. So we're going to look at Leviticus 20, verse 26. Leviticus 20, verse 26, page 134, if you have the tablet. And ye, plural, by the way, you know this. In old authorized English versions, ye is plural. That's why I like this stuff. You can see through the English into the Hebrew. And ye shall be holy unto me, for I, Jehovah, am holy, and have set you apart from the peoples, that ye should be mine. By the way, this gives the definition. Like, how many times have I heard no one is holy? No one is holy but one, or whatever. But the point is that you're commanded, according to the text, to be holy. And this defines that holiness. He says, Ye shall be holy unto me, for I am holy and have set you apart from the people. So what does it mean to be holy? To be set apart from other people. That's what you're to be. And then these instructions are to tell us how to do just that. But it's a definition within the charge. You get that? That's what we've got here. Now, I want to look at a couple of passages in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6 through 11 is where I'd like to begin. We're dealing with what is at the root of the rebellion. See, that would be a good title for a class, the root of the rebellion. This is the root of the rebellion, is that these rebels, they're not making this up. There's a legitimate gripe. There's a legitimate, at least you would think, based on these texts, a concern. So here we go. Deuteronomy chapter 7, beginning in verse 6. For thou art a holy people unto Jehovah thy God. Jehovah thy God hath chosen thee to be a people for his own possession. There's our word again. His own special treasure, a segulah, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. And when people say, this is me talking, when people say, well, I just don't get, why is it that people say Israel's chosen? Well, it's because these texts say it. Verse 7, Jehovah did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all people. But because Jehovah loves you, and because he would keep the oath which he swore unto your fathers, hath Jehovah brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondage from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore that Jehovah thy God, he is God and faithful God, who keepeth covenant and loving kindness with them that love him, keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, and repays them that hate him to their face, to destroy them. He'll not be slack to him that hates him, he will repay him to his face. Thou shalt therefore keep the commandment and the statutes and the ordinances which I command thee this day to do them. Now, there are other texts you see on the page. I'm not going to read those. Deuteronomy 14:21 and Deuteronomy 26:19. But these are more texts which have to do with the chosenness of the nation and with the charge to that nation, and even the claim that that nation is holy and to be holy. Okay? So these texts are what I want you to understand are in the mind of Korah when he and Dathan and Aviram and Eliab and On and 250 come to Moses and Aaron and challenge them in the wilderness. So they've got some basis for it. That's my main point. Now, let's see how that holds up. Go with me back to Numbers chapter 16, verse 3, because I want to look at this again, page 124. And they, all of those that I just named, Korah, Dathan, Aviram, Eliab, On, and the 250, they come and they, verse 3, assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Jehovah's among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the assembly of Jehovah. So now you've got a little bit of background. Now we can understand at least why Korah might be speaking the way he is. Let me just talk about the Hebrew behind ye take too much upon yourselves. In Hebrew, the phrase is Rav Lachim. Rav Lachim. And literally, what that means is much or great is to you, plural. Or the way we would say it, understanding the syntax and the way the Hebrew works, is your basic, like that doesn't make sense in English. If I go, much is to you. But if I say, you assume too much for yourselves. You've taken too much for yourselves. You took too much. See, that's what it's really saying. Ye, you two, Aaron and Moses, have taken too much. Because basically what he's charging is, you're assuming what all of us are entitled to. So, literally, much is to or for yourself. This is what he says. Now what I want you to do is look at Numbers chapter 16, verses 6 and 7. Okay. Now this, by the way, is after Moses hears what Korah and the rebels say, he falls on his face and he's really upset. But here's what he says in verse 6 and 7, page 126. This do, take you censers, Korah and all his company, and put fire in them and put incense upon them before Jehovah tomorrow, and it will be that the man whom Jehovah doth choose, he shall be holy. Ye take too much upon you, ye sons of Levi. Now, I want you to notice something here. Did you notice that what he says is, ye take too much on you? That was the charge against Moses and Aaron, is you two have assumed too much, and he flips it on them, and he says, we're going to see who's holy. Tell you what we'll do. You get your censers, and you get them ready. You want to perform a priestly duty? Get ready. I want you to get your censers out. Now, they ought to be shaken about now, because it hadn't been that long since the story of Aaron's sons doing something that isn't quite right. You know, we can debate what that is. We might talk a little bit about that in the after class again. But the idea is that the charge and the countercharge are the same. Ye take too much. No, you take too much. You have assumed, this is what the priestly writer wants us to get. Ye have assumed duties that don't belong to you. That's what he's saying. Now, I did a little research on this. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I'll tell you that the phrase Rav Lahim, much is to you, you can look this up on your own. You can look it up and study it. It appears 6 times in the Pentateuch. We've got a couple of them here. 9 times in the Tanakh. And when you go through these texts, you get different understandings, but it always means something like the way I'm describing, is you've overstepped, or that's enough. You know, it's enough of that. In fact, in the passage, remember when Moses, according to Deuteronomy, is asking, you know, he really wants to cross into the land, and he's told, that's enough. Much is to you. It's in the singular there, but you get the point. It's like that. No more is needed. You've said enough. That's this idea. 9 times in the Tanakh, 6 times in the Pentateuch. The charge is, you've gone too far. The rebels make this charge against Moses and Aaron. Moses makes it against the rebels. Now, what I want to do now is taking this a little bit further, peeling apart and looking at it from a historical critical perspective. We're going to dive a little bit deeper, and I'm going to be asking some questions, and hopefully you'll come right along with me in this quest. But I want to know specifically, what does Moses to the sons of Levi, and what I mean by that is, what about the other? So is he asking Datan and Aviram and Eliab and On and the 250, are they all doing the same thing? This is the question. The answer might be yes, it might be no. We're going to find out. But is he specifically talking to different parts of the group? A lot of times when we read this, we just lump this all together, but I'm going to show you some things as we work through that might make a little more sense of that. So we're going to break this down. Bear with me. We're going to read one more time Numbers chapter 16, verses 1 through 3. Excuse me. By the way, each time we look at this, we're looking at it slightly differently. Okay, here we go. Now, Korah, page 124, the son of Ishar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, with Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliab and On, the son of Pelath, sons of Reuben, took men, and they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the congregation, called to the assembly, men of the renown, and they assembled themselves against Moses and against Aaron, and said to them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Jehovah is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the assembly. So, okay, if you have a notepad, if you've got the tablet, you can write this in there. I want you to write, just so you kind of can keep track of this, Korah, right? We're gonna start looking at the rebels. This is the rebel group. You got Korah with Datan and Aviram. So put maybe Datan and Aviram in another column or next to it. And then you have On, right? And then you have 250 men. These are insurrectionists. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more on the academic side, but I promise you it won't be boring if you can stick with me through this. And in fact, if you're watching this, you'll be able to see this. Let's look at a chart so that we can kind of keep this straight. This is my rebel chart. Okay, now the way that we look at this, according to the academic, some of the academics will say this is a blending of two sources. Now, before you immediately dismiss this, hang with me, because I promise you it's going to get interesting. So when I look at the two, according to what scholars say, they say that these are two ancient stories, two ancient rebellions that have been merged into a single account. You've got the priestly account, and that's got Korah, who is a son of Ishar, son of Kohath, son of Levi. Scholars propose that there is an ancient rebellion story, and it just involves Korah. And then there's another ancient rebellion story that involves Datan and Aviram, sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Pelat, the sons of Reuben. So you've got Datan and Aviram and the Reuben boys. They're all in one story. And the other story is about a Levitical clan, and they both are combined. Now, here we go. I want you to look at, we're going to work through just to show you, if you have the Torah tablet, you'll see that according to academics, the priestly source is one. It gives the story of Korah. So I'm going to read just a little bit, leaving out what scholars call the Yahwists, the J source. Here we go. Now, Korah, the son of Ishar, by the way, the verses are on the screen. Seth put those on there for you. You got 16 verse 1 parts, and then 2b through 11. I'm just going to read a bit of this. Now, Korah, the son of Ishar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, took men, 250 princes of the congregation, called to the assembly men of their renown, and they assembled themselves together against Moses and Aaron. All right, you see that? It just flows. Now, we're going to look at this, and we're going to, by the way, I'm going to look at other verses in the Bible because I think you ought to compare. Are there any passages in the Bible that would say, you know, that's interesting because I've got another source in the Bible that only mentions the rebellion of Korah? We're going to look. All right, now I'm going to read the J source, and it says, Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, the sons of Pelat, sons of Reuben, rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel. You see, so this is what they look at. The scholars look at it, and they see two distinct rebellions that have been merged, okay? Now, you've got those on the screen. We'll upload those later so that you have those. And I'm going to continue to push through, and we're going to ask the tougher questions. There are obvious differences if we break these apart the way the academics do. But let me ask you this. Is this just academic speculation? I mean, a lot of people will tell me when they challenge this, they'll say, I don't know, you know, it just feels like you're picking apart passages. You know, you take a part of this verse and you go, oh, well, that's the P source. Oh, that's the J source. You know, and people look at that and they say, I don't buy it. Well, that's a fair assessment. That's fair. I mean, how do you take chapter 16 and verse 1 and you break it into three different parts and assign some to one source and some to another? Is it really that obvious to the scholars? Why is it that most scholars say this? Is there something there that gives them insight into the evidences that says, I think these are different sources? That's what we're going to look at. So the first place I want to look is, I want to go to Deuteronomy, because what we get is we get in Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, often we get certain narrative blocks, we get certain sources, certain stories, and we get the same story at times in Deuteronomy, but the details are different. And you go, well, I don't know, it's been 40 years, maybe things have slipped Moses' mind or whatever. This is the only other option, really. But I want to look at that. Let's look at Deuteronomy 11, verses 6 through 7. This is on page, let's see, Deuteronomy 11. Do I have that? 72, page 72. I had to cheat. Seth had the page number written down for me. Good job, Seth. Deuteronomy 11, beginning in verse 6. And I'm going to read 6 and 7. And what he did, we're jumping into Moses' lecture here, and he says, and what he did unto Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the sons of Reuben, how the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up in their household and their tents, and every living thing that followed them in the midst of all Israel. But your eyes have seen all the great work of Jehovah which he did. The reason that I think this is interesting is because, as you might imagine, it seems to know about a rebellion. It even describes an earthquake. And the story is that some people got eaten by the earth. It doesn't mention Korah. Now, some people might say, okay, whatever. Well, stick with me. Let me look at a footnote in the New Oxford Annotated Bible. By the way, I recommend for people, and you see this, it's on our website, but this is a great study Bible, an English study Bible, if that's what you're looking for. It's got the Hebrew Bible, it's got Christian New Testament, it also has the Apocrypha or the Deuterocanonical books. On page 268, there is a footnote on this particular text, and it says, this address is based upon the early tradition of a revolt of Dathan and Abiram. See Numbers chapter 16. There's no mention of Korah's rebellion, which was added to Numbers 16 by the priestly school after this abstract was made. Now, you might say, well, that's just a footnote. It's not in the Bible. Well, I just wanted to make the point that according to many scholars, we're going to break into this some more, many scholars will suggest that the story of Korah is added into and on top of this other rebellion. Now, we already saw that in Deuteronomy chapter 11, it knows of a rebellion, it knows of an earthquake, it knows of the earth eating the rebels, just doesn't mention Korah. Now, what are other possible reasons for that? We'll talk about that in the discussion. Now I want to look at Psalm 106. Psalm 106, beginning in verse 16. Yeah, you need to look at several verses before you start making certain assumptions about a text. Now, by the way, Psalm 116 is, it tells quite a bit about these, 106. It tells, you were going to be looking for what you're going to say, mine doesn't say that. Psalm 106, verse 16 through 18, it deals with quite a bit of these different rebellions in the wilderness. But here's what I want to look at. Notice, they were jealous of Moses in the camp and of Aaron, the Holy One of the Lord. The earth opened and swallowed up Dathan and covered the faction of Abiram. Fire also broke out in their company. The flame burned up the wicked. Anybody, did I miss that? Where is Korah in there? Any mention of Korah? Now, I know that some apologists will say, well, his name is written out of Scripture because he was rebellious. He just wrote him on out. Well, let's see if that holds up. So what I've got now is I have in the priestly literature of the Pentateuch, I have a rebellion that involves Korah, a Levite, and it also involves Datan and Aviram and Eliab and On and 250 men. And the rest of the Bible seems to know about the Datan and Aviram and, all of that, but they don't seem to know about this Korah. Okay. So if we have in this text differences, they just don't include Korah. We've got to dig deeper. So now I want to go to Numbers chapter 16, verses 30 through 32. Numbers 16, verse 30 through 32, and that's on page 130 of the tablet. Here we go. Now this is, Moses is getting ready to bring about this new thing with God's help. But if Jehovah make a new thing, and the ground open its mouth and swallow them up with all that appertain unto them, and they go down alive into Sheol, then ye shall understand that these men have despised Jehovah. And it came to pass, as he made an end of speaking all these words, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up and their household, and all the men that appertained unto Korah, and all their goods. So we got Korah is clearly the object of the eating, right? This is the earth is going to consume Korah and everybody with Korah, right? Every man that appertained unto Korah and all their goods. All right. And then as we go down into the story, we're going to look at a little bit more of this, the census, right? The censors, I mean. Look down at verse 39 through 40, Numbers chapter 16, verse 39 through 40. By the way, there's a difference in the page numbers in a Hebrew Bible and an English Bible. So if you're in an English Bible, it's going to be verse 39 and 40 of chapter 16. If you're in a Hebrew Bible, it's chapter 4 and 5. If you've got a Torah tablet, it's in there for you, so you don't get confused. Here we go. And Eleazar, the priest, took the brazen censers which they that were burnt had offered, and they beat them out for a covering of the altar to be a memorial unto the children of Israel, to the end that no stranger that is not of the seed of Aaron come near to burn incense before Jehovah, that he be not as Korah, and as his company, as Jehovah spake unto him by Moses. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the purpose of the story. Everybody needs to get it. If you're not of the sons of Aaron, don't officiate as a priest. Now, we're going to get into all sorts of things in the course of our studies over the weeks and months and years, such as why is David, who is clearly not of the sons of Aaron, how is he donning an ephod and participating in some, there are questions that come up. But what I want you to get right now, according to this text, is this is it. No more. You must be a descendant of Aaron. Non-Aaronid priests are unauthorized. That's the message. The sons, now I'm going to shift gears for a moment because I've got something to share with you that I find interesting. Remember, when we compare the book of Numbers and the story of the rebellion and other stories, quite a few actually, we see differences between Deuteronomy's version and what we find in Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers. Here's an example. Did you know that the sons of Aaron are never mentioned in Deuteronomy? Never mentioned in Deuteronomy, the whole book. And I find that interesting. Now, elsewhere, in other words, if you look at Leviticus, Numbers, Chronicles, even the book of Nehemiah, we get the sons of Aaron are mentioned 31 times in 29 verses. The sons of Aaron, the sons of Aaron. It's very, very specific, and quite often, these texts are dealing with who is authorized and who is only authorized to perform priestly functions. So the question becomes, you're telling me that the sons of Aaron are not mentioned at all in Deuteronomy, but it does mention priest. Aha! This is what we're going to look at now. So I'm going to look at the chart. And what I want you to notice is, now I've got the English on the chart. The English represents the ASV English, but we can talk about the Hebrew. It's not so important to get into the Hebrew words behind this for the sake of this discussion. What we've got is, in several places, these are references to priest in Deuteronomy. So we've got the Levitical priest. That is used in 4 passages. You see, in Deuteronomy 17, verse 9, 17, verse 12, chapter 24, verse 8, and chapter 27, verse 9. The Levites, the Levitical priest is generally the Kohanim Haleviim. So you could read it, you could go, the priest, the Levitical priest. Now, what some people automatically do is they go, well, that's the sons of Aaron, right? You say, well, it's got to be the sons of Aaron, because we just learned in the book of Numbers that what it says here, that at the end of this, that you won't be like Korah and challenge the sons of Aaron. Here we go. The Levitical priest, but it doesn't call them the sons of Aaron. I think I know why. This is the purpose of this teaching today. In other texts, they're called HaKohen, the priest. The English will say the priest, singular. Chapter 17, verse 12 of Deuteronomy, chapter 20 and verse 2, chapter 26, verse 3 and 4. Those refer to the priest, but not specified sons of Aaron, okay? Then the plural, Kohanim, the priest, plural, chapter 18, verse 3, chapter 19, verse 17. I'm giving you all these you can look at and study more deeply. And then there is the final, is the priest, plural, sons of Levi, chapter 21, verse 5, and 31, verse 9. Now, got to go a little bit deeper, so bear with me. Take good notes. You're going to have questions. I know you're going to have questions. I want you to have questions. I want you to have challenges because these texts are meant to challenge. All but one of these references in Deuteronomy are from what we call the Law Code, from chapter 12 through 26. There's one text that's outside of that. That's where I want to go next. I want to go to Deuteronomy chapter 31 and verse 9. Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 9. It's on page 194 if you have the Torah tablet. Okay, here we go. Deuteronomy 31, verse 9. And Moses wrote this law, and he delivered it unto the priest, the sons of Levi, that bear the ark of the covenant of Jehovah, and all the elders of Israel. Now, let me talk about this verse for a minute. This is a specific group. Now, this requires close reading. It's why most people don't talk about this crazy stuff. You got to look. You have to be a real Bible nerd to get into this stuff. There is a specific group, the priests, the sons of Levi, that bear the Ark of the Covenant. So I want to define a certain group of priests. Yes, they're priests. Now, you might say, well, if they're priests, Ross, then they have to be the sons of Aaron. Okay, listen closely. These are priests, and we're going to identify this group of priests as the ones who carry the ark. Got a clue here. By the way, let me add this detail. I cannot read this verse without pointing this out. This is written third person. Moses wrote this law, right? It says somebody is telling me that Moses wrote HaTorah Hazot, this law, and he gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, a specific group of priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark. All right, okay. Let's look a little closer. Let's go to verse 24 through 26, a couple of pages over if you have the tablet. 24 through 26 of Deuteronomy 31. Here we go. And it came to pass when Moses had made an end of writing the words of this Torah, this law, in a book, in a scroll, until they were finished. Wait a minute, the Torah's finished and we're only in chapter 31? Verse 25, that Moses commanded the Levites that bear the ark of the covenant of Jehovah, saying, take this book of the Torah and put it mitzad ha'aron, by the side of the ark of the covenant of Jehovah your God, that it may be there for a witness against thee. Let's break this down. This is not talking about the Torah, the 5 books. It can't be. You can't be talking about Genesis 1 through 34:12 because we're not there yet. This is within Deuteronomy 31, and it says Moses finished the Torah to the very end. It's done. Whatever's in it, we don't know yet. And he gives it to a certain group of priests, right? He gives it to a certain priests that are identified very clearly as the Levites. He gives it to the priests, the Levites who carry the ark. Okay, let's see it then. You mean to tell me that the Levites who carry the ark, Ross, are not the sons of Aaron? Well, let's let the Bible tell us. Who is it that carries the ark? That's what we have to figure out. We have to figure out who carries the ark, because that then would tell us who the priests are. Now, if I find, let's say I flip through this and it says, and the sons of Aaron carried the ark, then there you go. But that's not what we're going to find. Look with me at Joshua chapter 3, verse 3. We're going to look at a few verses. We're going to start with Joshua chapter 3 and verse 3, Joshua 3, verse 3. Okay, and commanded the people, let me back up to verse 2 just for context. At the end of 3 days, the officers went through the camp and commanded the people, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priest, then you shall set out from your place. Follow it. So who are, this is a reference to a group of priests carrying the ark of the covenant. Group of priests. They're called Levites here, by the way, Levitical priests. That's the same word used, same phrase, same combination that we found in Deuteronomy. The priest, the Leviim, the Levites, the Levitical priest. So is that the sons of Aaron? And a lot of you are going, yes, it has to be, because they're priests. All right, let's look at chapter 8. Joshua chapter 8, verse 33. Just get a couple of these, just a couple of them. All Israel, alien as well as citizen, with their elders and officers and their judges, stood on opposite sides of the ark in front of the Levitical priest who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord. Half of them in front of Mount Gerizim, half of them in front of Mount Ebal, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded at the first, that they should bless the people of Israel. Who are these Levitical priests that carry the ark? Put your answers on your paper or write them in the text, in the chat. Now, we're not going to go to 1 Chronicles 15 But have in your notes what you see on the screen, chapter 15, verse 15, and chapter 15, verse 26. Because what I want to do is establish that there is a group known as priests who carry the Ark of the Covenant. They're Levites, they're priests, and they carry the Ark of the Covenant. So you have to have a table. You go, are these Levites? Yes or no. Are they priests? Yes or no. Now, if you follow the priestly writer, if in question 2, are they priests, are they Levites, are they priests, you would say yes if they're sons of Aaron, right? I mean, that's what we believe. They have to be sons of Aaron to be priests. But what if I said, wait a minute, what if they're Levites and they're also priests and they carry the Ark of the Covenant? Can those be priests? Can a Levite who carries the Ark be a priest? And is that the same group as the sons of Aaron? Now, some of you might think, well, this is a little bit kind of nitpicky. Well, it's very, very important, because whoever this group is, whoever the group is who is Levite, who is a priest, who carries the ark, that's the one that Moses gave his little Torah to keep it. Very important. Okay, now let's figure out who this group is. Numbers chapter 3, verse 31. Numbers chapter 3, verse 31. That's on page 26 of the tablet. 331 says, by the way, we're talking about the Kohathites here. In fact, let me look at verse 29 just to show you. The families of the sons of Kohath, right? Just put that in your notes. We're talking about the family of the sons of Kohath, and their charge, verse 31 says, shall be the ark and the table and the candlestick and the altars and the vessels of the sanctuary wherewith they minister, and the screen and all the service thereof. So first point I want to establish is which one of these Levitical groups has control, charge of the holiest objects, the ark, the table, the candlestick, and so forth. This is the most important stuff, I would say, the holiest items. All right, now look with me at chapter 7, verse 9 of Numbers, which is on page 56 of the tablet. Numbers chapter 7, verse 9. By the way, this is after the wagons and oxen are given to certain Levites. But then look at verse 9. But unto the sons of Kohath, who are the sons of Kohath? Those are the ones who carry the ark and the table and the holiest items. Verse 9, the sons of Kohath he gave none, because the service of the sanctuary belonged unto them. They bear it upon their shoulders. Okay, so I just want to make a point here. We're building the case. The sons of Kohath are the ones who have the possession, they have the task, the charge of the holiest items, and they don't get any oxen, and they don't get any carts, because they bear it on their shoulders, right? Remember the story of they're bringing it in on a cart, and it hits a bump, and you've got a nice gentleman wants to help, and he reaches out and he gets struck dead. Well, he didn't know this rule. Okay. Now, this group, just for right now, all we know is the sons of Kohath are Levites, and they have the charge of this holiest items, and they're not allowed to do anything with it but carry it on their shoulders. Okay. Now look with me at Numbers chapter 4. Numbers chapter 4, and we're going to begin at verse 4. And we're going to read 4 through 15. This is page 32 in the tablet. Everybody ready? Here we go. This is the service of the sons of Kohath in the tent of meeting about the most holy things. When the camp setteth forward, Aaron shall go in and his sons, and they shall take down the veil of the screen and cover the ark of the testimony with it, and shall put thereon a covering of sealskin, and shall spread over it a cloth of all of blue, and shall put in the staves thereof, and upon the table of showbread they shall spread a cloth of blue, and put thereon the dishes, and the spoons, and the bowls, and the cups wherewith to pour out, and the continual bread shall be thereon. And they shall spread upon them a cloth of scarlet, and cover the same with a covering of sealskin, and put the staves thereof in, and they shall take a cloth of blue and cover the candlestick of light, and its lamps, and its snuffers, and its snuff dishes, and all the oil vessels thereof, wherewith they minister unto it. And they shall put it and all the vessels thereof within a covering of sealskin, and shall put it upon the frame. And upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue, and cover it with a covering of sealskin, and shall put in the staves thereof. And they shall take all the vessels of ministry wherewith they minister in the sanctuary, and put them in a cloth of blue, and cover them with a covering of sealskin, and shall put them on the frame. Get ready. And they shall take away the ashes from the altar, and spread a purple cloth thereon. And they shall put in upon it all the vessels thereon wherewith they minister about it, the fire pans, the flesh hooks, and the shovels, and the basins, and all the vessels of the altar. And they shall spread upon it a covering of sealskin, and put in the staves thereof. And when Aaron and his sons have made an end to covering the sanctuary and all the furniture of the sanctuary, as the camp is set forward, after that the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it, but they shall not touch the sanctuary lest they die. These things are the burdens of the sons of Kohath in the tent of meeting. Now, the reason I read that is because in this particular text, it says that the Kohathites, because you have this tradition that they're the ones who carry it, but the writer here wants to make a distinction between the ones who carry it and the priest, right? So you can carry it, but before you carry it, the sons of Aaron have to come in and get things set up. Then you can carry it. If I just read Numbers chapter 4, if I just read these other passages in Numbers chapter 16, say verse 30 through 32, I would get the impression that one thing is certain: these Levites, sons of Kohath, who are tasked, charged to carry it, one thing is certain: they're not priests. They're Levites. They have to carry the ark. But if you read this text, that not only are they not priests, if they touch this stuff, they'll die. Clearly, a narrative meant to suggest that certain Levites are priests and certain ones aren't. According to the priestly writer, the only priest is going to be the sons of Aaron. Okay? So that's what we need to establish here. So the sons of Kohath are Levites, but they're not sons of Aaron. Here we go. Now get this. So the Levites, these Levites, I want you to get this, very, very particular, these Levites that we're talking about, the sons of Kohath, they carry the ark. You can write these down, put a check mark. They carry the ark. They possess the true Torah written by Moses, because we read in Deuteronomy 31:9 that the Levites who carry the ark, they've got the true Torah. And they're called priests. But they're not the sons of Aaron, and yet they're called priests. This is the conundrum. This is the Kohanim Conundrum. Another good title. Levi has 3 sons. And you can just write these verses down, because I don't have these on the screen for you. I want you to just look these up later. We're going to look at one of these really deeply, but Genesis chapter 46, verse 11, Exodus chapter 6, verse 16, and Numbers chapter 3, verse 17 and following all tell about the 3 sons of Levi, because we want to break this down. So now I want you to go with me to Exodus 6 verse 16. We're going to start in Exodus 6, verse 16, page 30 of the Exodus Torah tablet. And we're going to look at this because we're going to dig into this priestly family just a little bit more, because I have questions. I have questions about Kohath and why we've got some texts which seem to suggest that some that aren't descendants of Aaron could be priest. They're called priest in the biblical text. Something's going on here. Exodus 6:16. It says, and these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations. You ready? Very simple. 3 names. Write these down. Gershon with an N. Underline the N. Gershon with an N, as in Nichols. And Kohath and Merari. There you go. Very simple. If we had a test and I said, give me the 3 names of Levi's sons, you would say Gershon, Kohath, Merari. Gershon, Kohath, Merari. Now I'm going to skip down. It starts breaking these family lines down. Go down to verse 18. And the sons of Kohath. Now, here we go into endless genealogies someone in the first century warned us about, because it causes questions. That's why I like to dig into them. Anytime somebody says, don't look at that, I'm looking. Verse 18, the sons of Kohath, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, Uzziel. All right, here we go. So we've got the 3 sons, Gershon, Kohath, Merari. You got this? Gershon, Kohath, Merari. If you ever get stopped and somebody asks you a trivia question in the mall, you can win money with this. I doubt they will, but if they did. And the sons of Kohath, now look at that second son that we're talking about, Kohath, and now we're going to break that down into 4 sons, right? You've got Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. You see? So now we're going down a little bit further. And now look at verse 20. And Amram, who is Amram? He's one of the sons of Kohath. So remember, the Kohathites, the sons of Kohath, are the ones that have responsibility for all the holy things. One of these, Amram, son of Kohath, takes Yocheved, his father's sister, to wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moses, and the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And then it says in verse 21, and the sons of Izhar, Korah, hey, here's our boy Korah. Korah and Nepheg and Zikri, right? So now what we're looking at as we look at this particular family line, we begin to make a little bit of sense of this. Now, I know a lot of people know this. They still don't answer the question as to why some texts have differences over who can be a priest. This is the conundrum here. But what we've got is Moses, Aaron, and Korah are all descendants of Kohath, so they're cousins, right? They're first cousins, right? If you really break this down. Because if you break it down, you've got they're sons of Levi, sons of Kohath, and then Amram. If you look at Amram's line, that gives you Miriam, Moses, and Aaron. Not necessarily in that order, right? Miriam, Aaron, and Moses. And then if you look at the son of Izhar, who's also a Kohathite, he's also, right, a son of Kohath. He's also responsible for the holy things. It's Korah. So they're both descended from the family who is responsible for the holiest things. Everybody knows that. There's no issue, no argument there. But where it really gets into the nitty-gritty, as we say, is the question we started with. Who is holy? Who can officiate as a priest? One writer makes it very clear. It's only the sons of Aaron. The Kohathites, Korah and his clan, you guys wait outside. Sons of Aaron are going to come in. They're going to cover everything up, and then you can go in and touch it. But before that, you can't, right? You're the ones who bear it, but you can't look at it. You can't touch it. then we have other texts which seem to suggest that they are priests. Now it's either just a slip of the pen in 12 or so verses, or it literally means that they're priests. I think it means literally that they're priests. It just brings up some questions. Can anyone other than the sons of Aaron be priests? Some texts say no. Other texts say yes. But in the end, the Levites had to decrease and the sons of Aaron had to increase. Any other Kohathite would not be allowed to function as priests. We have small pieces of evidence in the text of competing Kohathites throughout history that have survived, and I'm going to look at a couple of them with you right now. Go with me to Judges chapter 18, verse 30. Judges chapter 18 and verse 30. This is a very interesting passage, and I'll show you. A lot of people don't know what to do with it. Chapter 18, verse 30. Now, the story, by the way, in Judges 18 is about a priest that is not a good guy, you might say, because he's doing things that aren't holy. But let's establish what he is first. Verse 30 of chapter 18. Then the Danites set up the idol for themselves. You're like, well, this is already a bad story. I mean, this is clearly not a godly priest. He set up an idol. Jonathan, the son of Gershom, son of, now it depends here on what translation you have. I want you to tell me what name you have just under your breath. Does it say the son of Manasseh? Or does it say the son of Moses? All right. And his sons were priests to the tribe of the Danites until the time the land went into captivity. What? You mean to tell me that you have priests, the sons of Gershom, the son of Moses? If your translation says Manasseh, stick around. Hang on. I'll tell you why in a minute. And that lasted until the captivity? So wait a minute. You've got a priesthood in the north that's descended from Moses. Something is what? Now you might say, well, yeah, Ross, but look, they're wicked. They're serving idols and stuff. This is an example, but is that the only case? Okay, so what happened here? This is, let me read the footnote. My footnote says, my text, this is the NRSV, says son of Moses, Gershom, son of Moses. The footnote says another reading is son of Manasseh. Okay, here we go. Listen to the footnote. Pious scribes seeking to protect the name of Moses from association with an illicit shrine connected to his grandson inserted the Hebrew letter nun above his name in the Hebrew text, turning Moshe into Manasseh. You follow me? So if you take the word in Hebrew, Moshe, and you squeeze a nun in there, you change it from Moshe to Manasseh. It's a whole different cat. It's a different guy, right? Different man. So, but it says, so this is verified in rabbinic writings. Okay. I know that. Some of you know that. I would challenge the reason. We have evidence here of a priesthood in the north that is Gershom, descended from Gershom. That makes me think, wait, I want to know more. I want to know more. Were they all worshiping idols? Were they only attached to the Danites? Really? Yeah, I mean, that's it? Just the little tribe of Dan and that's it? Pious scribes. The name Gershom. Okay. It sounds very close to another name of Levi's son, Gershon. In fact, it's so close that sometimes scribes make a mistake. Or do they? Sometimes we get, remember I told you to memorize this, it's only 3 names. Gershon, Kohath, Merari. Gershon, Kohath, Merari. Sounds like Gershom. Remember Exodus chapter 2, verse 22? Remember when Moses names his son Gershom? He says, because I've been a Gershom. I've been a stranger in a strange land. I've been a stranger there, the way he really says. Okay, let's look at a couple of texts. Go with me to 1 Chronicles chapter 6. Remember, in the first century, there was one rabbi at least that warned about all this genealogy stuff. Man. Okay. 1 Chronicles chapter 6, and we're going to begin in verse 1. The sons of Levi, Gershom, Kohath, and Merari. Do you have an M or an N there? Do you have a mem or a noon? Gershom, mine has a mem. The footnote says Gershon, a variant of Gershom. See chapter 6, verse 16. Okay, I think I will. Thank you. So I'm going to look at verse 16. The sons of Levi, Gershom, Kohath, and Merari. Here we go again. And you're like, well, maybe he had two different spellings. Well, no one calls me Rob, Ross, Rob. You know, it's a different name. It really is. It's a different name. So I'm suggesting that we've got here a little bit of confusion on these later texts. Look at verse 17. These are the names of the sons of Gershom. Pretty clear. It's clearly associated with Gershom there. Now, let's look at 1 Chronicles 21. 1 Chronicles 21. And, let's see, verse 6 and 7, is that right? Let me look. I think I have the wrong verse. I'm sorry, it's supposed to be 23. I wrote down the wrong verse. It's chapter 23, verse 6 and 7. Seth always tells me, if you give me the right verse, I'll put the right verse. Sorry about that. And David organized them in divisions corresponding to the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The footnote says, or Gershom. See 1 Chronicles 6, the note, and 23, verse 15. Well, let me go ahead and read verse 7. The sons of Gershon. Okay, now in the Greek and the Syriac and the Vulgate has Gershom, but the Hebrew is Gershon. You see, it's just back and forth here. Let's look, though. Let's look at verse, what did it say? Verse 16, and let's look at 15 and 16. These are the sons of Moses, Gershom and Eleazar, okay? And the sons of Gershom. So the point being that you have this name very close in the family, Gershom, Gershon. Could be that they're just the similar names. Except that what we get at times the name for the Levitical descendant of Levi is Gershon, Gershom. Feels like there's a little confusion there. Okay, now, when it comes to rebellion, rivalry, and redaction, all three of these, ultimately, one group is elevated over the others. And the other Kohathites, all other Levites are described as subservient to the sons of Aaron. In fact, one source has them, those who would challenge the sons of Aaron, the earth swallowed them up. Let's look one more time. Numbers 16, verse 32. Page 130 if you have the Torah tablet. 16, verse 32. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up and their households and all the men that appertained unto Korah and all their goods. End of the story. The descendants of Korah, his whole household, won't be challenging anymore. Won't be challenged. So that you know going forward that if you're not a son of Aaron, don't assume any of the priestly duties. But history required an edit. And I tell you why. Because a group shows up later in history and they say, we're descendants of Korah. What? We just read that Korah and all his household, everything that pertained to him was swallowed in the earth. But look at this with me. Look at Numbers chapter 27. Numbers 27 and verse 8, beginning in verse 8, page 190 of the Torah tablet. Again, back with these genealogies. The sons of Palu, Eliab. Remember him? Eliab. By the way, you'll see in the Torah tablet, this is attributed to the redactor. The sons of Eliab, Nemuel and Datan and Aviram. Hey, so we've got Eliab, Datan and Aviram. I know these guys, who were called of the congregation, who strove against Moses and against Aaron in the company of Korah, when they strove against Jehovah, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up together with Korah. When that company died, what time the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a sign. Notwithstanding, the sons of Korah died not. Now, some don't see a problem with that. I just see it as a different version. In one story, everyone that pertained to Korah and his household were consumed, but this version says something different. Now, the question becomes, why is that? And it's because a group of sweet singers of Israel, responsible for some of the most beautiful psalms, shows up. By the way, I highly recommend the musical group Sons of Korah. Their music is absolutely out of this world. I like it. I listen to it quite often. They call themselves the Sons of Korah. And to this group, we have the following psalms attributed. Psalm 42 through 49, Psalm 84 and 85, and Psalm 87 and 88. All are attributed to the sons of Korah. And they had one of the greatest assignments of anybody in the camp. They were responsible for caring for the holiest items and carrying the holiest items. And if we believe Deuteronomy, and if we believed these other texts, we would say that they were entrusted with the Torah that Moses wrote. They weren't fired. They were just demoted. That's a bold claim. Look at 1 Chronicles chapter 9. I don't like to make a claim and then not show you a text, at least to consider. 1 Chronicles chapter 9, we're going to begin in verse 17. The gatekeepers were Shallum, Akub, Talmon, Ahiman, and their kindred. Shallum was the chief, stationed previously in the king's gate on the east side. These were the gatekeepers of the camp of the Levites. Shallum, son of Korah, son of Ebiasaph, son of Korah, and his kindred of his ancestral house. The Korahites were in charge of the work of the service, guardians of the thresholds of the tent, as their ancestors had been in charge of the camp of the Lord, guardians of the entrance. Anybody remember that? And Pinchas, son of Eleazar, was chief over them in former times. The Lord was with him. Zechariah, son of Meshelemiah, was gatekeeper at the entrance of the tent of meeting. All these who were chosen as gatekeepers at the thresholds were 212. They were enrolled by genealogies in their villages. David and the seer Samuel established them in their office of trust. And it goes on to talk about how they, the gatekeepers, were responsible for the charge of, like, the entranceway. Verse 19 again, Shallum, son of Korah, son of Eviasaph, son of Korah, and his kindred of his ancestral house, Korahites, were in charge of the work of the service, guardians of the thresholds of the tent, as their ancestors had been in charge of the camp of the Lord. Actually, their ancestors were in charge of the holiest items. It says very clearly, Numbers chapter 3, verse 31, Numbers chapter 7, verse 9, Numbers chapter 4, verse 4 and following. Very specific. They were the ones who carried the ark. It was to them that were given these things. But they later in history were assigned to be gatekeepers. Now, let's look at just one of their psalms. Just one of their psalms, Psalm 84. Go with me to Psalm 84. This is, I love this. This is from the pen, according to what we read here. This is from the pen of the descendants of Korah. Here we go. To the leader, according to the Gittit of the Korahites, sons of Korah. A psalm. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. My soul longs, indeed it faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh sing for joy to the living God. Even the sparrow finds a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young at your altars, O Lord of hosts, my King, my God. Happy are those who live in your house, ever singing your praise, Selah. Happy are those whose strength is in you, and whose heart are the highways to Zion. As they go through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The early rain also covers it with pools. They go from strength to strength. The God of gods will be seen in Zion. O Lord God of hosts, hear my prayer. O give ear, O God of Jacob, Selah. Behold our strength, O God. Look on the face of your anointed. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than live in the tents of wickedness. For the Lord God is a sun and shield. He bestows favor and honor. No good thing does the Lord withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, happy is everyone who trusts in you. Again, verse 10, for a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than live in the tents of wickedness. You see, there was a legend, a story, a belief that Korah, the ancestor, was wicked. And it appears from this that Korah, the descendants of Korah, said, we've settled our fate. I mean, this is our new task. We're as gatekeepers. I'd rather be here than anywhere else. So it makes you wonder, if the descendants of Korah, or if Korah was swallowed by the earth, was there a job duty change? It's something to consider. They love the temple, but by the time this is written, they're only doorkeepers. And they're happy, I might add, with their forced place. I mean, that's clearly what it says. Even a day in your courts is better than the alternative. Deuteronomy and Psalm 106 don't include the story of the rebellion of Korah. The question is why? The question is why? Why is it that Deuteronomy 11 and Psalm 106 only seem to know about Datan and Abiram? Who is holy? And do we see evidence in the text of fighting between priestly families. Could it be that the sons of Aaron ultimately wrote into the text, the priestly text, that they were the only ones? But there are other traditions. There are priests who carry the holiest items. And could there really have been a priesthood in the north that was descended from Moses? And what's with the name change? These and more questions in the after-class discussion. Don't go away. We'll see you, and just give us a few minutes to get set up here. But we'll definitely come back on Zoom. If you're watching on YouTube, we welcome you. We'll be with you about 45 minutes. Thanks to all the Yachad, the supporters, for making all this possible so that we can do everything we do at no charge. God bless you. Join me next week, but don't go anywhere today if you've got time. Meet me in the Zoom. Meet me on YouTube. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.